Alright, in this video we are going to look at how to create a driven key with a controller that controls an image sequence so that we can cycle between two or more images in that sequence, and it works like this. We can move this little controller back and forth and animate its state of, in this case, blinking. You could use this for dialogue and any other sort of tools your imagination could come up with in terms of sequencing through images that are placed as a material on an object in Maya. And here's just an animated version of that little blink. So we're going to go ahead and start with a new Maya file, and I'm going to shift right click here, go ahead and create my cube in the middle. And in this case I just like to create some geometry that I'm going to work with, so I'm going to shift right click, go to multi-cut, hold down control, and cut that sort of face mask that we've got going on here. I'm going to go into object mode and go ahead and assign a new material. Make it Lambert, change the color a little bit, and then we're going to grab this face by right clicking, clicking on the face, and assigning a different material to it. So we've got another excuse me, material. It'll be a Lambert, and there it is. But instead of color just being a color, we're going to use our checker box over here so that we can assign a file to it. And this is where it gets pretty important, because these files need to be named in sequence. And so in Photoshop, I've created an eyes closed, eyes opened sequence there, and I was careful to label them with a 0 and a 1 in them. So this is eyes 0 and this is eyes 1. Now you can't see it with these particular versions because these are copies of those files, but that is what they are named. So I'm going to go in and get them, and they're in a folder in here. So we're just going to go grab them out of the folder, and eyes 0 is what we're going to grab. Now Maya will automatically recognize 1 and 2 as long as those numbers are where they belong in sequence in terms of your naming convention. So it could be underscore 0, 1. Those should work. I haven't actually tested how you can stretch that, but in this case it will recognize 0, 1, and 2. And in fact I don't even need 2. That was just a test. But I'm going to start with 1, or 0 rather, because that's the first element in the sequence. You can't see what happened because I need to turn on my textured view in my viewport, and you still can't see what happened because this particular face needs to be edited in terms of the UVs. So when I select that face and go into the UV editor, you can see that it's applied that way. The cube is unwrapped, sort of like when you learn how to make a cube in elementary school. I could do a planar map like this. For just that, I can do an automatic map this way. You know, I could do this. I could do all kinds of different things with it. But when I move it up and down, right, this gives me the ability to sort of position these eyes using the UV editor. And in fact, where it was is exactly where I want it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and leave it there because we're going to make these eyes blink. They're not blinking now, right? So the way in which we make them blink is when we click on this and we right click over here. We've got Lambert 2 and 3. Lambert 2 is the color of the, we'll just call it the clothing or the cowl, and Lambert 3 is the actual blink or eye material. We're going to go to Lambert 2 and just label this because it's good practice. We'll call it clothes, like that. And then over here we'll call this blinking underscore matte. And then under color you can see that we've got this indicator here that tells us that we have a file associated with this. And down here we have image sequence, or use image sequence. Okay, the minute that I click that, this turns purple, and what that means is there's an expression associated with it. And that expression is pretty straightforward. It says this is the first image, this is the second image, and this is the third image, and so on. And if you run out of images, then there's nothing. So just to give you an idea what that looks like rendered, we are going to go ahead and go to Maya software here and then render it, and there's nothing, right? If I go back to here, it renders it with the eyes closed, and if I go back here, it renders it with the eyes open. And you can see we probably need to do some work with that particular image to make it a little cleaner and clearer, and that could be our rendering as well. But The point is that we can go through our sequence, but we don't have control over it. It just plays, and that is the essential problem that we need to solve. So we're going to go over here to our attribute editor. Right-click on this, just go to Face, go to Lambert 3, and let's get out and go back in. And we've got Lambert 3, and we're going to go ahead and label it blinking. Must not have hit enter on the last one. And now that we're at blinking, and we go here to color or image sequence, we've got this. So if we go to edit expression, you can see the way that the expression is built out in the expression editor. We have pcube and file one, and then essentially what that you can edit the expression that's built in here for all of these different elements. We don't want this, right? We don't want whatever expression is applied that causes it to go through a sequence, we're going to break it. So we're going to go ahead and actually edit or delete the expression here. And then that leaves us stuck with, well, whatever number it was on or whatever it jumps to. Current image number is set to 1, but we're going to move it back to 0 and close it. And now the eyes are open. And what we need is a controller. So I'm going to go over here to curves, and I'm going to add a NURBS curve here to control the blinking eyes. And in order to control them, if I click on the object and go back to blinking and go to here, since I broke the expression that was on here, deleted the expression that was associated, now I'm free to set a driven key, right? And if I set the driven key, I can set the file one frame extension is what's set, right? You've got a number of other things that you could set a driven key for, but we need a driver. So I'm going to select the driver, which is going to be this. So I'm going to load the driver, and we're going to drive the eyes opening and closing with the translation on the y-axis, meaning we're going to move it up and down. And over here, we'll do that. Immediately, once we have this in sort of the quote-unquote neutral position, we're going to key it. So that means when this circle is in this position on the y-axis, the eyes will be open. But now we need to go over here and drill down again and change the position of this, and then change this to 1 and hit enter. And then we want to key it in that position. And that means when it reaches that point, it will now blink the eyes. So if it worked correctly, this image number 1 is controlled directly by the driven key, but the minute that I get down past the threshold or the point in the movement along the y-axis, I now have full control. And so I could easily just, set a keyframe here, and then set a keyframe here, and I've got auto key on, and then set another one, and set another one. And now as I scrub through the timeline, the character will blink their eyes, right? And obviously there's a kind of limitless possibilities for this, for using image sequencing to create a two-dimensional expression, literal expression, facial expression, dialogue, things like that. Really, your imagination's sort of the limit, but it's a very powerful little tool. And when used properly, you can do all kinds of dynamic things with just two-dimensional images on three-dimensional objects.